All right, so here we are. I just went on to the online site here, which is Room Mode Calculator. You can literally just go to Google and pop that in, Room Mode Calculator. And then it's the first one, AMROC is what I'm using. There's other ones. There's Room Modes Calculator by Bob Golds. There's one down here by Mixed Squared System Designs. I mean, there's all sorts of room. Here, you even got a Real Traps one, right? Mode Calculator. So simple stuff. Every company that does audio or acoustics is going to offer this, but I'm just going to use the first one that came up, straight up. Okay, so the length of the room is 14 feet. So we're going to pop in 14, and we're going to go width is going to be 9, and our height is 7.7. 7.7. All right, and then we're going to say in feet, and there you go. Bada bam. So what this is going to show you here on the graph is it's going to show you any modes, any problems you're going to have, which is going to be modes are like modal ringing, which is usually in the low end. And that's why this graph ends at 350 hertz or so, right? So 40 hertz is going to be a big problem, which means what? It means that usually you're going to get some 80 hertz in there as well, right? Right here. But it looks like we're looking at mainly in a room this size, 40, looks like 63, 64, which is huge, right? That's a lot of times in your dance kick or your hip hop trap kick, R&B music, rock and roll, like basically anything where you want that like fat, thick punch of the kick drum is right there. And your sub frequencies, sub bass, 808s, 40 hertz, right? And then we have around like 75 or so. Right in here, we got 80 hertz is going to be a problem. So there's some things here to just kind of check out. And you can see down here how they broke it down. Tune of the selected mode, you can select the mode. It'll tell you exactly where it's at. And this is saying right now, it's saying that's on E1, right? And then here you're at B1, right? So this is a big deal because if you're playing bass, for example, and you play a D2 note, that note is going to go, and then you play like here on like a D sharp, it's going to go, it's going to sound like one note bass is what we call that. And then you're going to start compressing the crap out of it down at 73 hertz, and then it's not going to translate anywhere else. And that's why we do this, right? So you can see the 3D design here as well, which is really awesome. I love this. So this is telling you the mode and see its pressure zones. So this is the first thing I look at when I start thinking about trapping, right? So as I hover over these, like let's start at 62, you can see that that's wall to wall. So that's where you're going to be putting your bass traps, is on the walls, right? To trap up that 62 hertz. And we'll prove that in another module where I'll show you the SPL meter, and I'll show you sending out the signal of 62.5 hertz through Pro Tools or Logic with a tone generator through the speakers, and then finding where it's building up by using an SPL meter and finding where the highest sound pressure is building up against the walls and the ceilings, etc. And then if I come up here, you can see that's floor to ceiling. So that's going to be where we're going to want to be trapping the ceiling at 72 hertz, right? So you want to use bass trapping on the ceilings, not just broadband absorption that's only sucking up 100 hertz, right? Super important to look at this 3D mode thing. Okay, and then here we go, corners. The corners are going to be more like 74 hertz. I mean, this thing is just doing all the work for you. Why would you go and shoot the room and send signal through the room without just like at least having a peek at what this is telling you mathematically, right? So here's another one. This is going to be the front to back modes. So you're thinking front wall, you're thinking back wall. That's really what that is. Okay, so that's like, how do I treat the front of the speakers where the speakers are sitting, and how do I treat the wall behind me? Okay, same thing here. This is showing you the back wall and front wall corners. So the wall to ceiling and the wall to floor in the front and the back. So 83 hertz is where you want to trap that stuff up. Again, this is telling you exactly what kind of bass trapping you need to put where, which is really important. And then here we go. Side is going to be the 96 hertz. So the reason we look at this is because if you could see down here in this room 3D modeling, you understand that 96 hertz is going to be building up in those corners from the side walls right? From the sidewall to ceiling, sidewall to floor. So that means you need to get traps that really absorb more of 96 hertz and not so much of this down here at 62 hertz, if that makes sense, right? Because that's not going to do much. And then also you're going to want to make sure that you're not absorbing, let's say like all the way up here. Yeah, like here with that same trapping up at 262. So we want to get bass traps that are tuned out. Even Helmholtz resonators, we'll talk about those in another module, which are really specific to frequencies and absorbing certain frequencies because they resonate at those frequencies and trap. But yeah, this is a great little thing. So we'll basically write down our biggest modes here. We'll look at 40 hertz and we'll look at the front wall and the back wall. We'll look at the 63 hertz, which is huge, the sidewalls. We'll look at the 80 hertz area, the 73 hertz area, and we'll just start to plan out our trapping and plan out what we're going to hit where. And we're also going to show you this stuff so that we're not just trusting, putting in some numbers into the internet. We'll actually show you how this stuff is really going to work. And there's other stuff here as well, like you can look at the modes per third and read what this is all about. Shows the number of modes per third up to your custom limit frequency, which is kind of interesting, right? You have the 83 hertz, 43 hertz, 21 hertz, and etc. So that's kind of showing you the third of it and how much pressure is really building up there. And then the room 3D we talked about. And then this is the bolt area, indicates an accumulation of good room ratios. If the red cross lines within this area, you have a good chance of more evenly distributed modes, which it looks like we do not. Okay, which sucks, but that's okay, right? So that's really all I wanted to show you with this software. And now let's get into some shooting and show you the software to shoot the room and see this visualized. So to make this really clear, you're not going to be trapping and finding traps for every single mode. Like for example, you're not going to go and get a 40 hertz trap for the front and back wall and then get traps for 63 hertz for the side walls and then come up here and go, hey, I'm going to get now a bunch of traps for the ceiling and floor here at 252 hertz. That's really not the way it works when you're in a small room or you're tuning any room. Typically what we're going to be using is we're going to be using broadband absorbers. So broadband means that it's going to absorb a lot more than just that one frequency. So here I'm on realtraps.com, which I think are some of the best traps out there for absorbing low frequencies, right? So this is what we're focused on right here. And you can see here like a Mondo trap in the corner is going to absorb a bunch of that 80 hertz area, but then it's going to get even more of that 130, 120, right? And then it's going to get a bunch of 150, and it's going to get a bunch of 200, and it's going to get a bunch of 500, right? So we want to just like look at the best broadband absorber for the issues within our room. But overall, as we tune a room, any room, a bedroom, an office space, a studio room, project studio, we just want to keep this in mind that these modes are going to be the issues, and this is where they're going to be building up. Side walls, front and back walls, corners, etc. So we're going to use the trapping that we can with the space that we can, and of course it's always going to be a give or take depending on the size of your room and your budget and everything else. But we're going to do the best we can to make things right here. And now that we know 63 hertz, that's great. We know 80 hertz, we know 70s, and we got that 40, which 40 is almost impossible to treat in a room this size. I'll be honest with you. You really cannot treat 40, and it'll always be there. But we can make decisions with speakers, right? Like, do we want speakers that really reproduce down to 20 hertz really a lot, or do we want to get some speakers that have a nice little starting roll off at 45 hertz, right? So that we can not even really approach that problem there. So let's get into the next module. Hopefully that was pretty informative for you.